For the E2 visa on the non-immigrant side. However, the E2 visa has a far smaller amount of an investment requirement. The regulation essentially it leaves it fairly ambiguous in the language that's used, where it says that the investment must be in proportion to the business to acquire a majority interest in the company or business that you're investing in. Which kind of leaves it open out there. A lot of times, a lot of consulates kind of just have been interpreting that as $100,000. If you invest $100,000 in a smaller business and you acquire a more than 50% interest in that business, then you could potentially qualify for the E2 visa. The E2 visa is a temporary visa. It's only good for 2 years. However, we can renew those visas every 2 years. Indefinitely. I have some clients who've been on E2s for more than 12 years. It's not uncommon to see. However, they cannot pursue permanent residence through the business that they're invested in. One of the common things that I've done in the past to get around that is I will have because the spouse also qualifies for the E2. That's another benefit to the E2 is that the spouse of the principal E2 holder also is issued an E2 visa, and they're also permitted to work under that E2 visa anywhere they want in the United States. So that's been a huge benefit for us because it allows us to then potentially parlay that E2 into a green card. Because if we have a spouse who's on an E2 and working wherever she wants, well, that employer can petition her for permanent residence, unlike the business that the principal E2 holder is invested in. That business cannot petition the petitioner for a green card. However, the spouse who's working for a separate business can, and I've done it, and it's worked. So that's one of the lesser. It's an investment visa petition that involves less resources, obviously, because the dollar amount that's invested is far lower than the million, and there's less capital pretty much at risk because of it. One of the catches to the E2, however, is that you must invest in the business prior to even applying for the visa. And that doesn't mean you're just able to transfer $100,000 into a bank account that's registered under the business name. They're not going to allow you to get an E2 visa like that. You have to show that you've expended monies towards the investment. In other words, you would need to either purchase an existing business that someone owns, and you purchase the majority ownership in that business. Say you purchase 51% of the stock, and you purchase it at a price that is proportionate to the value of the business. So if it's a business that's, say, worth $200,000 and you invest $101,000 to get you 51% interest, then that would be a suitable investment that would work. That's for a business that's already in operation, already owned. If you want to pursue a type of investment visa where you're opening the business yourself, then it becomes a bit more, I won't say problematic, but a bit more onerous on the visa applicant. You have to invest money in such things as inventory for the business, a lease agreement for the business, accountant fees, lawyer fees, licensure fees. You have to keep essentially receipts for all of these expenses prior to filing for the E2 visa, so that you can show the Immigration Service that you did indeed invest the minimum amount for that type of business, and it got you a majority interest in it, and that you wish to pursue a visa so that you can operate the business while you're here in the United States. The E2 visa is only made available to people from certain countries. We need to have a treaty with the country. There's a list of countries where they'll be listed as to whether or not we have a treaty with them. There's the E1 visa as well, which is the sister of the E2 visa. It's for intercompany. It's for international traders. The investment amount is less, and but the individual needs to prove that there is an exchange of goods being made between the United States and the foreign country from which he's a citizen. The E2 is far more common than the E1, and the E2 works for a lot of people in being able to stay here on an ongoing basis and operate their investments that they may have here. One of the other requirements on the E2 is that it must be an operating investment. It cannot be an idle investment, such as the extreme example of that would be investing in a stock portfolio in the United States, or real estate. If you're not operating a business, the Immigration Service will not consider that to be an active investment, and therefore wouldn't qualify for the E2. So when you're thinking about investing in an E2 investor visa, you need to be thinking, one, the investment needs to be made prior to pursuing the E2 visa, and two, you must be the one operating the business in the United States, and you must have a majority ownership of it.